maybe you could have put this earlier on, but I decided to put it here with Wilson. Reason being, Wilson is there when the 19th Amendment will be passed, giving women the right to vote. So I do want to kind of look at it here. So we're going to look at how all of these things come into play. Now, the first thing we have is a Seneca Falls Convention. Okay? Seneca Falls Convention is exactly as it says. It's a woman's right convention. So that's what I want you to get. It is a woman's right convention. And there are many, many people who are on here. Many who are going to talk about. Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony. We have a lot of people here we're going to look at. Lucy Jones, Mother Jones as she called. Now, while they're going to draft what is called the Declaration of Sentiments. Okay? So what is the Declaration of Sentiments? First off, what document does it kind of sound like? Declaration of what? Independence. And so what they basically did is in your ELA class, in your English class, right? They're going to have you model something. That's where you take this and you change words. So they modeled it that said, we believe that all men are created equal. What they did is said, we believe that all people and women are created equal. So they changed that over, trying to get this. And so the idea was, what are we wanting to do here? And so this is really the first kind of push for these movements. Now, the first woman we're going to talk about here is Lucretia Mott. Here she is. Lucretia Mott is probably one of the early pioneers of this idea. In fact, she's the first one to sign the Declaration of Sentiments, correct? And she's kind of the more moderate. She believed in writing things like the Declaration of Sentiments, and she's not going to be as crazy as the other people that we meet. Okay? So she's kind of moderate. The next woman we have is Elizabeth Stanton, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She again believed in writing things, but she also wanted to have big meetings like the Declaration of Sentiments, more meetings to get things out. And so we have that there. Now we meet the next woman. We meet Susan B. Anthony. Now Susan B. Anthony said, organize, agitate, educate must be our war cry. Now, what does it mean if you agitate somebody? You annoy them. In other words, she just didn't want to meet and write things. She wanted to go out and do things. Susan B. Anthony actually voted at one time, and she got arrested. There you go. She actually tried to vote when she couldn't and got arrested. So she's kind of a more radical one. She's going to, force the issue. If you can vote, well, so can I. And if you don't like it, you can throw me in jail. But that's just going to bring plight to the cause. And that's important because if you pay attention to this and going into the civil rights movement, we talk about it. Dr. King did something very similar. He just did things as he saw him fit, and you can throw him in jail. Okay? Now, the last woman we're going to look at here is Alice Paul. Now, Alice Paul is going to be responsible for, again, more radical things, but she's also going to organize the suffragettes and the people, the women who would go and have these big, massive meetings. Okay? So that is Alice Paul. Now, notice here, this woman looks a little bit different, right? She's more moderate. She was kind of born after this. After women get the right to vote in 1919, it's ratified in 1920, Margaret Sanger here decided that wasn't enough for women's rights. There had to be something different. At this time, contraceptives, birth control pills, were not available because they were actually seen as being immoral, as being wrong. And so Margaret Sanger is going to advocate the first birth control pill, and later on, she's going to be a big proponent in starting what is called Planned Parenthood. Now, Planned Parenthood recently has come under fire, if you've paid attention to CNN, which you probably don't, and you should, because there's a video of one of the women there actually kind of haggling prices for baby parts. And this is horrible because Planned Parenthood is about abortions, and you can make sense of women's right or women's choice if you want to, and that's fine. But if this video is true, and they're still looking at the authenticity, if it's true or not, about her haggling off baby parts, that's gosh awful. But there's been a lot of things going on. So Planned Parenthood is an advocate of women's choice in the abortion thing of Roe v. Wade. Now, the last woman I want to really talk about here is Mother Jones. Now, Mother Jones, you probably have to add her on. But Mother Jones was an advocate for children and for women alike. She led these big marches. In fact, it will be her that will lead the first, or second rather, because Jacob Coxey had one, second march on Washington with disabled children. She took the children who had legs and limbs lost and marched them to the White House so the president could see how bad these things were. And so we have her, Mother Jones. Now, that is it for the progressive era. The next thing we're going to go into is the thing that I said will be going along with us, and that is imperialism. Remember, progressivism and imperialism are together. So some of the presidents, I'm going to jump back. We're going to talk about McKinley and Roosevelt and Taft and Wilson going forward. So don't sit there and go, oh, we're done with them. No, we're not, because this is going simultaneously. But I wanted to cover what was going on at home first in progressivism, and now we'll talk about what's going on foreign in imperialism.